All right, 3.2. This one's going to be a little bit closer to home. This one is about American Indian identity. So I hope you guys all get 100% because hopefully you guys, I mean, I know some of this we didn't get to in our Native Studies class, but some of this we did. So the stuff that we did talk about already, you guys should know very well, like manifest destiny. You guys should remember what that is. If you don't, I'll tell you again, but I hope you do because I told you guys about it like 10 times. Manifest destiny is basically where whites believe that it was their destiny by God to overspread the continent from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. So God gave them this land. They could take over. They could, spread out and have the whole land for their country, for their, good country. So that's manifest destiny. Let's start at the beginning with Pocahontas. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a cute movie. There are some true things in those movie series. There are some falsities. You can look up what's good and what's not good. But anyways, so her kind of a little bit to their story is John Rolfe was one of the people who came over to Jamestown from Europe, met Pocahontas. They ended up getting married. He takes her back to England and she lives in England for the rest of her life. And she's dressed up like, an English woman. They even powder her face to get, a little bit lighter skin tone. White powder was popular at the time anyways. It meant you have a high status if your skin is whiter than others. My skin looks super white right now because of the light in this room, and the camera just makes everything seem whiter. Like this is like a brown, but it doesn't look brown right now. So I would be very popular right now in Europe in the 1600s. Look how white my face is. Anyways, so yeah, she goes to England. She lives the rest of her life. She has a few sons. I think she had 3 sons. She basically lived like a princess, really there. I mean, they knew that she was a princess because her father was like a chief of chiefs, so he was a very important person along the East Coast. So she was treated pretty well because, considering. So there was a lot of people in Europe who, when they thought about Native Americans, they thought about her and her story and who she was. So she played an important role in trying to get the right perspective, if you will, for people about Native Americans. One thing, I think this is funny. So whites believed from the very beginning, white Europeans believed from the very beginning that they were superior to natives and they had better society, better civilization, better stuff. And they did have better of some things, it's true, more advanced. If you consider technology, of course, they were definitely more advanced. But it's just kind of funny how whites believed so much that they were superior to natives, but almost all of the white civilizations or white colonies that were there at the very beginning, they all depended on natives for survival, for protection. And it's funny because you have someone who actively needs you to survive, who thinks that they're better than you, even though they need you to survive. It's like your child thinking that they're better than you are as a parent. I'd be like, no, you kind of would die without me, of course. Like, what the heck? But it's funny that when the natives were in the position where they were more powerful because whites were dependent on them, this is the very beginning, they didn't act the way that whites did when they became more powerful. They acted friendly. Of course, they were cautious and very wary because they knew that at any moment they would be stabbed in the back, which of course they did get every single time. But I thought that was ironic. A lot of tribes in along the eastern part of our country, a lot of tribes would take in people who just showed up in their land. This included runaway slaves. This included whites who preferred the Native American way of life, which happened a lot. You would usually find at least a few whites in each native community because they preferred the native way of life. It was simpler. It was more, whoa, there goes my computer. They were more together. I mean, there was, people weren't getting mad at each other so much. I don't know. So, and so you have people from other races who would come to these tribes, and they would basically just bring them in. They would basically adopt them. They became members of the tribe. And in fact, in some cases, these people who came into their tribe got into leadership positions. There was one tribe, I think it was the Cherokee. Nope, it's not Cherokee. I can't remember. It's one of the southern ones. There was a runaway slave who escaped and went to their tribe, and he became one of the leaders that went to delegations to the U.S. Capitol to speak on behalf of their tribe. They'd have there's a picture that I saw that I have 5 people, and he was one of them that went as a leader from his tribe. So it was often that tribes would allow someone who was outside of the tribe. They wanted to live in their community, so they brought them in. They adopted them. They became part of that tribe. So that was something to know. The way that whites and natives viewed the land was different. Natives, for the most part, they viewed the land that, it's the creator's land and we all just share it. I know that there's traditional lands where this is where they lived and this tribe lived here and this tribe lived here, and you just kind of stayed out of each other's area for the most part. But none of them really believed that I deserve this land. It was special to them. It was sacred because of their experiences on the land. But it's not like I own this land. It was never like that. Whites, on the other hand, they really, really wanted to own land because in Europe, land was running out. People were, booming in population. Resources were gone. So, and for the most part, if you had land, it's because you were rich or because you were the oldest son. They had something where a father, his gift to his kids would be the oldest son gets all of his land in his house, and the younger sons may get a little bit of money, but they don't get any land. So all the younger brothers or poor people, the chances of them owning land were so slim. So a lot of people looking for land came in America. So they were just so desperate to own land, which is really interesting because a lot of America's history has been doing whatever it takes to get land. That desperation started from the very beginning, doing whatever it takes to get land. Because land is one thing that you'll never get more of. There's only so much land in the world. You'll never get more of it. So it's pretty important, And it was a sign of status for whites. The more land you own, the better of status you are. And it's still, for the most part, true today. I mean, if you have a higher status, if you have more money, then you will probably have more land to your name. We're going to talk about a couple. I'll just briefly mention some of these policies that the U.S. government had concerning American Indians. Some of these we've talked about, some of these we have not yet. Let's see, 1830 Indian Removal Act. We didn't talk about this one specifically, but we kind of, you guys mostly know this. So 1830, they basically said all the land east of the Mississippi River, you're gone. Sorry, kicked out. So bye. This is where I want to talk about the story of the Cherokee. So right before I tell you about the story of the Cherokee, let me tell you what assimilation means. If you don't know, assimilation is basically when a minority culture adopts the majority culture's way of life. Okay, their culture, they just adopt it. The Cherokee Nation, they were very unique because they adopted the white culture. They adopted it more than any other tribe that I've heard of has adopted the white culture. So they did everything. They dressed like them. They got educated like them. They spoke English like them. They participated in events like they did. They did everything that they were told. They were told, if you do this, if you act this way, if you basically be white, then we'll treat you good. You will basically be white. And they were told that all their lives. And some of their leaders, in fact, one leader was someone who's half Native, half white, but he was still an elected leader because his people respected him. He was told his whole life growing up, because he grew up in a half native, half white world. And all grown up, he's told, if you act white, if you do this, then you will be white to us. You know, that's what white people told him. And when it came to the Indian Removal Act, who cares anymore? You know, oh, you try to do everything. Oh, well, I'm sorry, you're still Indian, so you're still getting out of here. It is what it is. And another interesting thing, we did watch a video about this, I think right before the break, about the Cherokee. So hopefully you guys remember this Cherokee story, because we did talk about this right before school basically was done with in person. The Supreme Court actually said that the Cherokee should not be removed, especially the Cherokee, but they didn't like the Indian Removal Act. They thought it was unconstitutional. So they said, no, it's not good. And President Jackson was like, well, who cares? See them try to enforce how they think the law is supposed to be, and he did it anyway. So that's why, you know, Andrew Jackson isn't a very good guy, because first, he didn't follow the Constitution. He did not listen to the Supreme Court when they said that the law was unconstitutional, so he disobeyed that. And second, he didn't care about any of the Native people and just kicked them off their land, especially the Cherokee, who had been so assimilated. I mean, they were the whitest natives ever, and even they were kicked out just like the rest of them. It's a tragic story. And then we have Indian boarding school starting in the 1880s. We did talk about that. Basically, the purpose is to strip natives of their culture, starting by the children. If you start it by the children, then by the time they grow up, then you have a whole few generations of people who are native, but they are assimilated into white culture, and all the other people are, you know, gone. And now we don't have to worry about natives anymore, right? That's the theory behind assimilation, behind Indian boarding schools and assimilation through the Indian boarding schools. One movie that we were going to watch that unfortunately we don't have time to, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to record the movie that I have on here, and I'll post it. But I'll have to do a private link and email it to you guys. But Indian Horse, we were going to watch that movie. So I'm going to send a private link to that movie. I strongly recommend you to watch it. So if you guys are watching this, make sure that you check your email, because I plan to, next week I hope, to record a private, meaning I can't post it publicly because that's against copyright laws. You know what? I can't even record it. That's against copyright laws too. I'll have to do an actual live Zoom where I have you guys all show up at the same time online, and I'll show the movie then so you guys can watch it. So I'll do that. So keep look out for your in your emails to get that so you guys can join and watch that movie. It's a really good movie. It's about Indian boarding schools. And very last thing on 3.2 is, what does indigenous mean? Hopefully you guys know this, but in case you don't know what the actual word means, it means just like originating from the area. So indigenous could be about plants. Plants that are indigenous to Utah originally came from Utah. So people who are indigenous to US originally came from the US, right? So that's what indigenous means, the technical term of it, technical definition. So that is the end of 3.2. So again, keep an eye out for your emails. I'm going to send, if you haven't gotten any of my emails about Zoom before, make sure you let me know. Either comment to this video or send me an email at shawnaf@utribe.com and let me know so that I can get a good email to send a link to. We'll probably do this video with next week sometime. So I'll let you guys know. So, all right, that's it.